So without further delays, I wanted to introduce our first speaker, which is Kathey Battrick. I'm reading it because I wanted to say it right. So she's senior manager in the library and media management department of Asharq News, right? Where she's in charge of setting up and leading the media library, and where she's responsible of the AI archive indexing mainly. And it's running since a couple of years now, right? Okay. Basically since the start of the activity of the institution, right? So this is a very interesting use case because Asharq News basically is a quite young news institution, and they started from the very beginning using these technologies. Kathey has a lot of experience in media management, despite her young age. She worked as the director of operation of IT and service in London, and I was very happy to knew that you also worked for British Kathey, which is an institution we worked in the past as Cinecittà. And today she will tell us about this use case, AI archive indexing, assessing and selecting AI services. What happens next? So you will tell us what happens next. Thank you. Where's yours, Kathey?
Thank you. So yeah, thanks for the introduction. I will whiz through the table of content, but as our friend said here, I'm Kathey Battrick. I'm the head of the Library and Media Management Department for Asharq News. My team are responsible for the incoming production files that are coming in from all our different content sources and sitting on our predominantly Avid PAM, and also the archiving and cataloguing of our content, including the AI indexing. So we are now about 18 months into our project. Asharq News went live on air November the 11th, 2020. So it's nearly our 2-year birthday. And we are a multi-platform Arabic news service that we deliver through a dedicated television channel, as well as multiple digital platforms. And you might have also recently seen our recent announcement, very exciting. We've just launched, or about to launch in the very near future, Asharq Discovery. So why AI? So why did we choose to use AI? So we are also carrying out some traditional cataloguing with our news librarians, as we call them, Asharq News, but we are using AI as an efficient means of generating large volumes of time code accurate metadata for around about 1,600 hours of content per month. It's multilingual, so we are an Arabic news channel. We have users that search in English and Arabic, so it's really important that we're generating metadata and facilitating search in both those languages. And thesaurus management. So I know the thesaurus has been mentioned a lot today, but again, with people coming from many different Arab countries and elsewhere, we need to have a consistent approach to naming people and labels. So labels could be objects, scenes, emotions, for example, and also managing the different alias that might occur with the differences in language. So we have constant debates about truck and lorry. Me being British, I would call it a lorry. My colleagues will call the same thing a truck. For aubergine and courgette, it's zucchini and eggplant in the UAE. So it's really important that we can manage all that and still enable these objects and people to be found regardless of the terminology used. And then the creation of a data set. So we are an Arab news channel. Our content is predominantly from the Arabic countries, and we need to detect and recognize Arab business leaders, politicians, and public figures. So we needed to be able to create a data set that enables us to do just that. So our first step before embarking on our AI project at the very beginning was understanding our user search behavior. So that's an interesting requirements gathering process in a new organization where you have many new people entering into this business, in the news gathering business. But we firstly looked at the kind of shots that our users would be looking for. And it falls, I guess, into 3 kind of content types, if you like. There's the more creative content, the stock shot type footage that our creative services team might be looking for to demonstrate a promo or some marketing production. Our editorial teams across news and current affairs and documentary production might be looking for certain editorial shots of something to demonstrate their story. And then thirdly, the editorial team, again, might be looking for footage covering certain events. So we need to try and make sure that we are able to create metadata in a way that fulfills those needs of the different users. And then which subjects and objects are users looking for and which shots are hard to find. One of our big focus points is business, finance and economy in the region. And what our users told us that typically if they're looking for a editorial shot of a flag from a certain country or a currency in somebody's hand from a certain country, as in editorial content, not a stock shot, that they find that traditionally hard to find in the kind of metadata that I've used in previous organizations. Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that's hard to find. So then we looked at the kind of themes that they're looking for. So healthcare, education, military, finance, all the kind of different themes or contexts that they would be looking for. Actually, if we could play video 1, please, at the back. So where they're searching for that content is also important. So, and does that search platform take relevance into account? So our broadcast production is predominantly produced in Avid Media Central, and it's really important for the new users there in a breaking news situation to be able to find the exact shot they need very quickly. So we took the decision early on to quality assure or supervise the content being generated by the AI and approve the labels and people that were being suggested or recommended by the AI, so that those with a below 99% confidence rating became 100% confidence rating. And for the Avid system, those are the people and the labels that we take into the system. Whereas on the search platform, which is our NewsBridge platform, we're able to work with the different confidence ratings that can be found with the labels. And then finally, how do we generate the required information for the different content types? So we are recording and indexing our channel output. That's recorded 24 hours a day, 7 days of the week, every day of the year. We're also indexing our social media content and, of course, all the raw rushes, interview and presser type material. So we ran a POC to determine that the provider and the AI services available were going to meet our needs, or at least the majority of our needs. We uploaded and indexed several hundred files that we analysed and scored against the quality and accuracy. So we created like a scoring matrix and worked with a committee of users from within the organisation to make an assessment and a judgment of how good and relevant and accurate we felt the content coming back, the metadata coming back was, and scored it accordingly. To test face recognition, we've not to date found a good data set in existence of Arab business leaders, public figures and politicians. So for the POC, we indexed a number of public figures and also many of our own Asharq news reporters. And then we reviewed and assessed the detection rate on the different types of content we were uploading and indexing on the platform. Transcription and translation, we selected files across the different audio, across the different media types with spoken audio. So our interviews, presses and vox pops, and of course the channel output. And we made sure that we took a good cross selection of the different dialects from all the different Arabic speaking countries, and again, assess the quality and accuracy for those files. And then for on-screen character recognition, we reviewed both the accuracy, but also we compared the information that we could get from OCR against other metadata that we were perhaps getting elsewhere, such as the transcript, for example. So diving into labels in a little bit more detail, I talked earlier about the kind of themes or context, and these are just a very few high-level themes that our teams were telling us they needed content for or needed labeling. We found that the labels generated gave us many of these contexts, gave us many of the object classes within those themes, such as military unit or military vehicle. And then in many cases, we were able to actually determine the type of military vehicle it was. So it could be something like an armored vehicle. And in many cases, we could also determine the type, Chinook, Humvee, Spartan. So not in all cases, we can get that detail, but in many cases, we're able to get it. So again, I mentioned about the thesaurus management earlier and labeling objects. So, I mean, what would you label this? Motor car, vehicle, automobile? Could we play video 2, please? So this is a very simple, obvious object that comes up a lot in the metadata, and we need to make sure that our users can find this regardless of which phrase they're using to search for the car. So this video just shows a car. So I haven't got my glasses on, I can't read the caption there, pulling up. So someone searched here for motor car. And here, if we now go to the thesaurus and look at motor car, we can see an example of the different alias that have been associated with the motor car in English and Arabic, and also the description. So straight away, you're adding huge volumes of really important and valuable metadata to the archive to help people find that essential shot. I can't read the Arabic, so I won't try that. So to our starting point being a new organisation, we didn't have our own thesaurus readily available. And I know one of our friends earlier talked about implementing or integrating with Wikidata. And with Newsbridge, that's exactly what we've done. Wikidata was our starting point for our labels, but then we've edited that edited the terminology or the main label to meet our needs more closely. So moving on to face detection and recognition, a few points to consider when implementing such a service. The obvious one being, are the people you need to tag recognized by the AI? And then if not, how easy is it to create a new data set that does just that for you? With Newsbridge, we upload 3 images and we get a really good level of accuracy back on the people detection. But then on the second point, do you then have means and access to enough images to train that data set? And do you have the rights to use those images? If you don't have the copyright to use an image, then you need to find a supplier who can maybe license you a data set. For us, we're labeling our own content. So thankfully, we have a really good source of images that we can draw from. And then spelling and alias, again, this relates to the thesaurus, but how best to manage the naming of people. Again, we're integrated with Wikidata, but in the case of our own guests who might not have a Wikidata entry, we have to determine rules, which is the first place we go to establish the correct English spelling. So if we, my name, for example, Kathey, K-A-T-H-E-Y, you'll see that spelt with a C or without the E-Y. And if you translate many Arabic names to English, you'll get multiple spellings, and that can be often impacted by the country that person is from, whose name it is or who's translating it. So it's really important we set a rule as to which variation or which version we take and where we take it from. Transcript and translation. Of course, you need to consider the languages and the dialects that are required for transcription, and also how formally they are spoken. That can have a big impact. Do you have a means of accurately identifying which transcription language can run, or can your provider or service detect that automatically and accurately? Which languages are required for translation? So I'll play in a moment video 3 just shortly, but you'll see the English translation of our Arabic. So there are some inaccuracies due to the type of content, but also in some cases, there isn't always a direct English translation of an Arabic word. But we are using the transcript to create searchable metadata. It's not something we're publishing. And then background noise, signal to noise ratio will have a big impact on the quality of your transcription. So if we could please play video 3, I think I'm on 3. I mentioned about the type of content. So this is an example of our channel output. You can see on the right-hand side here, my left, the Arabic transcription, and then the English translation as that plays through. So here we have one of our correspondents or one of our studio talent speaking, and they're speaking in quite a formal manner. So you'll get a good, accurate result. And this is a press release. Again, the people will generally be speaking in a fairly formal manner, but there can often be background noise, cameras clicking, reporters shuffling paper, that kind of thing, which will impact the accuracy. Actually, this is doing pretty well. And then finally, vox pops, so interviews with people on the street. They will often be speaking in a less formal manner. And there may be a lot of background noise, traffic rushing past, that kind of thing. So again, all these factors will impact the quality of the transcription that you get back. Thank you. And on-screen character recognition, a few points to consider here is the positioning or the movement and the clarity of text. So by movement, I mean how fast is that camera moving past the text, if it's something you're capturing in the video itself rather than a subtitle. The clarity of text, if you are capturing the name of a building, but the signage is in mirrored letters and the sun's reflecting off it, you might find that that impacts the quality of the OCR. But then on the other side of things, what does OCR offer that other metadata cannot? So while there's street signs, buildings and business names that you can perhaps capture as metadata that your traditional cataloging might not pick up or could pick up, but it would take a huge amount of time to do that. And one application of this is multi-model rules. If we could play the 4th video, please. So I'm showing you again the AVID system here. So we have applied multi-model rules that applies the label for these banks that we can see in the video when the on-screen character recognition detects it. So it quickly becomes a way for us to easily capture the majority of building and business names and logos, because many of them actually will have text associated with them. And here you can see the label in the thesaurus, Samba Financial Bank, and the multi-model rule is telling the system, if it sees Samba text on the video, apply a label of Samba International Bank. And then my news librarians, as they do the quality assurance, they'll approve that label so it becomes 100% provided it's accurate, or ignore it if it's not. And then again, the type of content will impact, again, how useful OCR is. So for our channel output, there's a lot of text and numbers and things in the background when we have a presenter on screen, because we're often reporting a lot of financial news and there may be captions in the background. We do have people's names and designations on screen. But running OCR, we decided not to run OCR purely for capturing that, because it's information we're, in theory, and hopefully capturing through the people detection and also in the transcript as well. Our social media production lends itself really well to OCR because we have very prominent captions. Those of you watching Reels on Instagram now and TikTok will notice there's a lot of video with just captions on as well. So that works really, really well. And then our raw footage, the rushes, etc., we're running OCR on an as needed basis where we can see that there's interesting content that we could use to create or run the multimodal rules or pick up important signs, etc. So I'm often asked, now we have AI running, can we not just leave it and let everything be truly automated? And why do I have my team review the content? And at this point in time, we're reviewing every single file. So it's a predominant part of our work, the review, the thesaurus management, the training. It's a key part of our work. And for me, there's three key areas. There's many more, but I think the main three areas that stand out to me is accuracy. How important is accuracy for your content? So for us, you saw the Avid system. We prefer to make sure everything is very accurate for that, so that our users can find content very quickly in a breaking news situation. But also, if we're not looking at it in this amount of detail and reviewing it in this way, how would I assess quality and relevance of the labels that are coming back, of the people that are coming back? How would I identify the people I need to add to the data set? And how would I identify and correct biases, so false positives? We had a phase where Boris Johnson was getting identified as his brother, Joe Johnson. That's now resolved. But if we weren't reviewing, if we were not reviewing the content on a regular basis, we wouldn't pick these issues up. And then also, how will you identify areas of improvement, and how will you manage your AI indexing strategy? And to some extent, that's also related to the kind of provider you're working with, whether you're working with somebody who has the science and the algorithms, or whether you're plugged into like an orchestration layer that enables you to pick from multiple services. So on an ongoing basis, we are trying to tackle the biases as best we can by enhancing the data set, for example, to resolve false positives. And we're also pre-processing the content. So we index content as part of our archiving process. Every day we have one of the news librarians will look through our content on the production asset management system and train the important guests and interview guests that will soon be archived, so that they're recognized straight away upon archiving and indexing. Displays what's happened there. Label quality, so we'll talk a little bit about this in a bit more detail tomorrow. We have a more of a technical deep dive with Fred and Newsbridge, but we're improving the relevance of labels that we get back from the system through the application of multi-model rules and adding additional labels via semantic inference. So to give a couple of examples, we had a video, a media asset, and Blossom was detected with a high confidence rating. And it was a story about cherry blossom in Japan. And cherry blossom was quite low down the confidence rating. It was 68%. So we're looking at cross-referencing the labels with the other metadata that's available to boost the confidence rating of useful labels that would otherwise be quite far down the list. And by semantic inference, I mean we are cross-referencing the labels we receive to add additional powerful editorial labels. So a simple example could be if we have a video and it detects microphone, street, people, sidewalk, traffic, it's possibly a vox pop. So let's add the vox pop label. And there's a bit more detail on this tomorrow. And then again, thesaurus management. So establish your source of truth. If you don't have a Wikidata, or that value is not available in the data source you're pulling from, what is your next source that you go to? And you need to all make sure that you're using that same approach so that you're consistent. And also utilizing the synonyms or alias to manage the differences in terminology. This doesn't just happen once and then you leave it running. This is something that happens, you need to be working on an ongoing basis. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathey. It's very interesting. Questions from the audience?
Hi, Kathey.
Hello.
I just want to know, how does AI recognize the different dialects in the Middle East? For instance, if someone is from Egypt, his pronunciation of certain words tells you that that person is from Egypt, someone from Sudan, et cetera, et cetera. So how does AI identify that?
So I might have to throw that question to Fred in a bit more detail, but the service we're using, it fully supports, I think, 6 or more Arabic dialects, and there's a few others in development. So we definitely tested against Egypt and got a good accuracy result. But technically and scientifically, I'll have to ask Fred to answer that one. But in terms of language, we provide metadata that determines the language, but not the dialect. That's automatic.
So it's actually a very good question, because when you are creating a model for speech to text, you got 2 choices. either you do like the universal model that supports like everything, every flavor, or you do a specialized model. If you take an example for Spanish, if you use the same model for Spanish in Latin America and Spanish in Spain, it's very difficult to have the two in the same model. It's not going to work. So the idea is to train two different models. The good thing about Arabic, we train a model with different flavor. So we got very good performance. But the thing is, if you are looking to Arabic, there is a very, very specific dialect, maybe, I don't know, and that is very, very different. Maybe the result won't be as good. But for all Arabic, North Africa and all the country of the Gulf, we got a universal model that is working pretty well. So yeah, that's the good thing to have in mind about AI is universal model does not exist. It's impossible. It's a grade we are trying to reach, but even I'm not sure it will exist at some point, but we can create specialized model and try to rationalize. Then the question is how you choose the model to use. That's the question.
We are from 2003, and I still, don't understand how AI fits into the Arabic model. What you explain, yes, but I still. But does AI recognize, if you're talking about AI, are you talking about the person's name? Are you talking about the whole concept of that person? Sorry.
The way transcription is working is actually, it's actually pretty complex. The first phase is basically what we call diarization, saying who is speaking and when. And at this stage, we're not doing any transcription. We're just like extracting features and trying to identify that. Once this phase is done, then we can apply a model. Then at this stage, we'll have transcription, but you need to apply a specific, what we call an NLP filter to extract named entities. Otherwise, you will have named entities that are just nonsense and that will be spelled not properly. So the truth is, when you got the model, you need to continuously train it, add new named entities, because, for example, you got new politician names that pops in. So you need to have a way to actually maintain your model. Like, like listening to local news, teaching the model to recognize new names and so on. So it's just the beginning of the journey. But the bottom line is, if you are managing a specific Arabic dialect in a specific region, the best solution, and you're sure 100% it will work, is to use 300 hours and create a model for that. But it can be very expensive and long to maintain. So the best solution is to try look through the market, which model would be the best suited for your usage. Try to measure the number of what we call the word error rate. So you count each word and which one is correct, which one is not correct. And from that, if you're above 90%, 95%, that's pretty much okay. But that's the way I do it. But
yeah, that's how we did our proof of concept against the key Arabic languages. We measured the accuracy. Literally, my team were having to count numbers and count the words and give me the accuracy percentage. Yeah, in many different ways. This
is exactly the example you made to me when we discussed this before.
Yes.
If I may, I have one. There is some other question from the audience. I want to. Yeah. So, prefer you to speak.
Thank you. I was just wondering if there's a quick way to answer the question of how the procedure works of the human beings checking the work of AI. We're at the beginning of our AI journey and we haven't quite resolved, does it come to your operators in batches for approval, or is it popping up all the time?
So we are constantly feeding the platform with content. As I said earlier, it's part of our archiving process. At the point we archive content, a file is also generated and ingested onto the NewsBridge platform. And then as soon as that content is processed, we have essentially a search really of content that's unapproved on the NewsBridge platform. And then we allocate the different content types or the different dates out to our team members to review. So we don't run all of the processes on all content. I kind of alluded to it slightly earlier, but they will check transcription. We check for profanities, accidental profanities and things, but we don't correct it. There's too much. OCR, we will leave as is. The main thing we review is the labels and the people, just to make sure that everything is accurate and we're not getting the biases returned. So it's a daily ongoing task. So we tend to, in the morning or late at night, the content for everyone for the next day is allocated out for them to work on. But it's a predominant part of our work. It's probably equal amount of time to our manual cataloguing, maybe even a little bit more. Yeah.
That's quite interesting. This was struck me in the sense that usually you think about using AI to speed up things and make them scalable. In your case, it seems that you are so focused on accuracy, then you are saying that you're spending eventually more time in validating rather than doing manual cataloging. I was wondering then, which is, I can understand your scenario makes sense. I was wondering, are you using all these time and resources to feed back the algorithms, in the sense that all the validation that you do then are fed back to the system, so you have a human in the loop approach, or not? I'm looking at
so we're starting to now look at what we're doing. Well, I'll hand over to Fred, but we are starting to look at the data and see how we can use it to enhance our accuracy and our confidence and relevance moving forward. I don't know if Fred wants to say, or is this covered tomorrow?
Yeah, so we are using what we call feedback learning, because you get the capacity to actually confirm or remove and clearly see who did what, if it's a human or if it's a machine. But as we move on, we are able to detect like new advanced editorial context using this kind of data, meaning that let's take an example of Vox Pop. Today, I mean, it's hard for a machine itself to detect a Vox Pop. But looking at all this data, we could create fine correlation to actually know that this is a Vox Pop. It's just not just a car with a microphone. No, this is a Vox Pop. So that's the first step is here. The second step, and we'll talk a little bit more tomorrow about that, is using what we call early fusion, saying that, okay, we got lots of data that was added, that was detected on this content. This has a lot of value. Because let's say you got the Vox Pop, you got now 50 hours of Vox Pop, you can create a model for Vox Pop for detecting Vox Pop out of that. And then you can truly automate it. So there is a kind of investment that is done, but as long as this data is valorized afterwards to create like specific models, you got a good return on investment at the end. And I think this is, in terms of AI, you got what we call late fusion. This is what we're doing. And early fusion, this is the next step. And the one that is mastering late fusion today will master early fusion tomorrow and create models really dedicated to his business, his or her business. Sorry, so we will talk about that tomorrow.
Thank you. So if you are more interested in knowing more detail about this tomorrow, there is a session at what time? Can you remember us?
2:30, yeah.
2:30, okay. Yeah. Well, Kathey, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.